Please, save my child. The whisper crackled through the 911 line at 2:47 a.m. Then silence, just the howling wind and a woman's muffled sob before the connection died. Somewhere in the frozen darkness of rural Montana, a pregnant woman had just made the most dangerous decision of her life. Her husband stood 3 feet away, shotgun in hand, listening. She had exactly 7 seconds before he heard her. 7 seconds to pray that someone, anyone, would come. Subscribe now and follow this story to the end. Comment your city below. Let's see how far this story travels. Elena pressed her palm against her swollen belly and felt her daughter kick. 8 months. 8 months of growing this life inside her, while Derek slowly destroyed everything else. 8 months of pretending, of surviving, of waiting for a moment exactly like this one. Derek had passed out drunk 45 minutes ago. She'd counted every second watching his chest rise and fall on that stained couch, the shotgun propped against the armrest within his reach. She'd stopped breathing when she slipped past him. The barn was 30 yards from the house, 30 yards of frozen ground and howling wind. 30 yards that felt like 30 miles with a baby pressing against her spine and her ribs aching from where he'd kicked her yesterday. But there was a phone in that barn. An old landline Derek had forgotten about. The one connection to the outside world he hadn't destroyed. Elena's fingers trembled as she lifted the receiver. Please work. Please, God, let it work. The dial tone hummed in her ear like a promise. She punched 911 with frozen fingers. 911, what's your emergency? Elena opened her mouth, but the words caught in her throat. 3 years. 3 years of silence, of isolation, of being told no one would believe her. 3 years of Derek's voice in her head. You're nothing. No one's coming for you. You belong to me. Ma'am, are you there? Please. Elena's voice cracked. Please, save my child. Ma'am, I need your location. Can you tell me where you are? The barn door slammed open. Elena's heart stopped. Derek stood in the doorway, shotgun raised, snow swirling around him, like he'd emerged from hell itself. His eyes were bloodshot, wild, fixed on the phone in her hand. What did you do? Elena dropped the receiver. It swung on its cord, the dispatcher's voice, tiny and distant. Ma'am, are you still there? Derek, what did you do? He crossed the barn in 3 strides and ripped the phone from the wall. The cord snapped. The dispatcher's voice died. Elena backed against the wall, her hands instinctively covering her belly. I'm sorry, you just what? Derek's face twisted with rage. You just tried to destroy our family. You just tried to take my child away from me. Derek, please the baby. Don't you dare use that baby against me. He grabbed her arm, his fingers digging into her flesh. I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me. Elena felt tears streaming down her face. You're hurting me. I haven't even started hurting you. He dragged her across the frozen ground back toward the house. Elena stumbled, her belly throwing off her balance. She fell to her knees in the snow. Get up. I can't. I said, get up. He yanked her to her feet. Pain shot through her abdomen. Elena gasped, clutching her stomach. The baby Derek, something's wrong. Nothing's wrong. You're fine. You're always fine until you want attention. He shoved her through the back door into the kitchen, past the living room where the TV still flickered with some late-night infomercial. Down the hallway. To the basement door. Elena's blood ran cold. No. Derek, no, please. You want to make phone calls? You can make them from down there. He opened the door, revealing the concrete steps descending into darkness. When you've learned your lesson, maybe I'll let you out. The baby needs a doctor. Please, I'm begging you. The baby will be fine. Babies are born in worse places than basements. He pushed her toward the stairs. Now get down there before I change my mind about letting you keep it. Elena's legs wouldn't move. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to fight, to do something. But she'd learned what happened when she fought back. The bruises on her ribs were proof of that. She took the first step down. That's my girl, Derek said, his voice suddenly soft. Almost tender. That was the worst part, how quickly he could switch. You know I love you, right? You know everything I do is for this family. Elena didn't answer. I asked you a question. Yes. The word tasted like ash. I know. Good. Now I'm going to lock this door, and you're going to think about what you did. And tomorrow we're going to talk about trust, about loyalty, about what it means to be a wife. The door slammed shut. The lock clicked. Elena sank onto the cold concrete steps and wrapped her arms around her belly. I'm sorry, she whispered to her daughter. I'm so sorry. I tried. The baby kicked once hard, as if to say, don't give up. But Elena didn't know how much fight she had left. 12 miles away, Jake Harrison couldn't sleep. This wasn't unusual. He hadn't slept well in 20 years, not since that night in Kandahar, when Sergeant Major Thomas Reyes threw himself on a grenade to save Jake's life. Jake remembered every detail, the way Reyes looked at him in that split second before the explosion, the words he mouthed, take care of them. But Jake never found out who them was. Reyes died instantly, and the only personal effects recovered were a worn photograph of a woman and a little girl with dark hair and sad eyes. Jake had searched for years. Dead ends every time. Now he lived alone on a ranch outside Whitehall, Montana, with nobody but Shadow for company. The Belgian Malinois had been his partner through 6 deployments, countless operations, and the worst moments of Jake's life. When Jake medically retired 2 years ago, Shadow came with him. They were both old soldiers now, both haunted by the same ghosts. Jake sat on the edge of his bed watching Shadow pace by the window. What's got into you, boy? Shadow whined low and urgent. It's just the storm. Settle down. But Shadow didn't settle. He kept pacing, kept whining, kept looking toward the door like something was calling him. Jake's phone buzzed. He grabbed it, expecting nothing. Maybe a weather alert, maybe spam. It was a text from Danny Flores, his old buddy who worked dispatch at the county sheriff's office. Hey Jake, weird one tonight. Got a 911 call about an hour ago. Woman whispered something about saving her child, then the line went dead. Couldn't trace it, old landline, probably rural. Storm's too bad to send anyone out. Probably nothing, but it's bugging me. You know how those calls stick with you? Jake read the message twice. Save my child. Something cold crept down his spine. Something that had nothing to do with the Montana winter. He texted back. Any other details? Just her voice. Sounded young. Scared. Really scared, Jake? Like she knew she was about to die? Jake stood up. Shadow immediately pressed against his leg, looking up at him with those intelligent amber eyes. You feel it too, don't you? Shadow barked once. Sharp. Definitive. Jake had learned a long time ago to trust that bark. Shadow had sensed IEDs, ambushes, hostages hidden in buildings that looked empty. The dog's instincts had saved Jake's life more times than he could count. And right now, those instincts were screaming. Jake walked to the closet and pulled out his old tactical gear. He hadn't worn it in 2 years, but muscle memory kicked in. Vest, boots, radio, first aid kit. He hesitated at the gun safe, then grabbed his sidearm. He wasn't law enforcement anymore. He had no authority, no backup, no official reason to be doing this. But somewhere out there, a woman had whispered into a phone, praying that someone would hear her. Jake heard her. "Come on, Shadow. We've got work to do."
Tap.
The storm hit hard as Jake pulled out of his driveway. Wind shook the truck, and visibility dropped to near zero. Any sane person would turn around. Jake pressed the accelerator. He'd driven through sandstorms in Iraq, monsoons, in the Philippines, blizzards in the Hindu Kush. A Montana snowstorm wasn't going to stop him. His phone rang. Danny. "Jake, tell me you're not doing what I think you're doing." "I'm just going for a drive." "In the middle of a blizzard, at 3 a.m., right after I told you about a mystery 911 call." "Coincidence? Jake? Danny, you said it yourself. It's bugging you. It's bugging me, too. What if she's real? What if someone's out there right now waiting for help that isn't coming?" Silence on the line. "The county can't authorize a search in these conditions. I could lose my job just for telling you about the call." "Then you didn't tell me anything. I'm just a crazy old SEAL who went for a drive." Danny sighed. "You're going to get yourself killed." "Wouldn't be the first time someone tried." "Fine. But Jake, if you find her, you call it in immediately. No hero stuff." "When have I ever done hero stuff?" Danny laughed bitterly. "You want that list alphabetically or chronologically?" Jake hung up and focused on the road. Shadow sat in the passenger seat, ears pricked forward, nose working overtime. The dog had that look, the one he got when he was locked onto something. "What do you smell, boy?" Shadow whined again. Jake trusted that whine. He turned off the main road onto a county route he barely remembered, heading deeper into the mountains, where the ranches got more isolated and the neighbors got more sparse. Somewhere out here a woman was waiting. He just prayed he wasn't too late. In the basement, Elena had lost track of time. It might have been an hour. It might have been 3. The darkness was absolute, the cold seeping into her bones. She'd found an old blanket in the corner and wrapped it around herself, but it wasn't enough. The baby had gone still. That terrified Elena more than anything Derek had ever done to her. "Please," she whispered, rubbing her belly. "Please move. Please let me know you're okay." Nothing. Elena closed her eyes and tried to remember what hope felt like. She used to be a teacher. 4th grade at a little elementary school in Denver. She'd loved it, the kids' laughter, their endless questions, the way they looked at her like she had all the answers. Then she met Derek at a friend's wedding. Charming, confident, attentive. He'd made her feel like the only woman in the world. The isolation started slowly. He didn't like her friends, they were a bad influence. He didn't like her family. They didn't respect him. He didn't like her job. It took too much of her time she should be spending with him. By the time she realized what was happening, she was already trapped. The farmhouse was his grandmother's, he said. A fresh start. A place where they could build their life together, away from all the noise and drama. A place where no one could hear her scream. The first time he hit her, Elena convinced herself it was an accident. He'd been drinking, she'd said the wrong thing, it wouldn't happen again. It happened again, and again, and again. When she found out she was pregnant, she thought maybe things would change. Maybe fatherhood would soften him. Instead, he got worse. The baby wasn't planned, he said. The baby was a burden. The baby was ruining everything. But he refused to let her leave. And he refused to let her terminate the pregnancy. The baby was his, he said. His property, just like Elena, was his property. Now here she was, 8 months along, locked in a basement, wondering if she and her daughter would survive the night. A sharp pain shot through her abdomen. Elena gasped. No. No, no, no. Not now. Please, God, not now. Another pain. Stronger this time. Contractions. Too early, she whispered. It's too early. But her body didn't care about timing. Her body was doing what bodies do when they're stressed, when they're terrified, when they've been pushed past the breaking point. Her baby was coming. And there was no one to help. Upstairs, Derek paced the living room like a caged animal. The phone call kept replaying in his head. Who had she been calling? What had she said? How much did they know? He'd been so careful. 3 years of isolation, 3 years of control, 3 years of making sure Elena had no one, no friends, no family, no connection to the outside world. And in 60 seconds, she'd almost destroyed everything. Derek grabbed the whiskey bottle and took a long pull. The burn calmed him slightly. Think clearly. The call couldn't be traced, he'd made sure of that when he cut the landline to the house years ago. The barn phone was ancient, probably not even in the system anymore. But the 911 operator had heard Elena's voice, heard her plea. Save my child. Derek's jaw tightened. That baby wasn't supposed to happen. He'd been careful, or so he thought. When Elena told him she was pregnant, he'd felt the walls closing in. A child meant commitment. A child meant complications. A child meant witnesses. But Elena had refused to end the pregnancy. For the first time in 3 years, she'd actually defied him. Derek couldn't let that stand. He'd made sure she understood her place after that. Made sure she understood that the baby belonged to him just like she did. Made sure she understood that any attempt to leave would end badly for everyone. And now this. Derek walked to the basement door and pressed his ear against it. Silence. Good. She was learning. Tomorrow he'd figure out what to do next. Maybe it was time to move again. Somewhere even more remote. Somewhere the 911 call couldn't follow them. But first he needed to sleep. He finished the whiskey and collapsed on the couch, the shotgun within arm's reach, chirped Singer. Jake had been driving for over an hour when Shadow went crazy. The dog started barking sharp, urgent, relentless, and pawing at the window. What is it, boy? What do you smell? Shadow whined and barked again, his whole body quivering with intensity. Jake slowed the truck and looked around. Nothing but white. Snow everywhere, obscuring everything. But Shadow was never wrong. Show me. Jake pulled over and opened the passenger door. Shadow leaped out into the snow, immediately heading northeast at a dead run. Shadow heel. But the dog didn't stop. He was following something, a scent, a sound, a sixth sense that Jake had learned to trust with his life. Jake grabbed his gear and followed. The snow came up past his knees in places, but he pushed through. 20 years of SEAL training had prepared him for worse. He kept his eyes on Shadow's dark form disappearing into the white. Minutes passed. Jake's lungs burned with cold. His legs screamed. And then he saw it. A farmhouse, barely visible through the storm, but definitely there. One light on in the window. A barn to the side. No car in the driveway. No visible tracks at all. Shadow sat at the property line, waiting. Jake knelt beside him, catching his breath. Good boy. Good boy. Shadow's tail didn't wag. His eyes stayed fixed on the house. Something was wrong in there. Shadow knew it. Jake knew it. The only question was what they were walking into. Jake pulled out his phone. No signal. The storm had killed cellular coverage. He was on his own. "Okay, old man," he muttered to himself. "Just like the old days." He checked his sidearm. Full magazine. He touched the first aid kit on his belt. Still there. Then he looked at Shadow. "You ready?" Shadow's ears went flat. His body lowered into that predator crouch Jake knew so well. Ready. They moved toward the house. Elena couldn't hold back the screams anymore. The contractions were coming faster now, waves of pain that crashed over her and left her gasping. She'd tried to stay quiet, tried not to alert Derek, but her body had other ideas. "Help!" she screamed into the darkness. "Somebody help me!" But there was nobody, just cold concrete and her own echo. The baby was coming. Elena had read all the books, watched all the videos, prepared as best she could, without proper prenatal care. Derek had refused to let her see a doctor, said doctors asked too many questions, reported too many things. But nothing could have prepared her for this. She was going to give birth alone in a basement with no light, and no help, and no hope. "I'm sorry," she sobbed to her daughter. "I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you. I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. I'm sorry." A sound. Elena froze. Footsteps above her. Not Derek's heavy, careless stomp, but something quieter, deliberate. Someone else was in the house. Elena's heart nearly stopped. Had the 911 operator actually traced the call? Had someone come? Was this rescue or something worse? "Hello!" she screamed. "Hello! I'm down here! Please! Please!" Jake heard the scream. It came from below, muffled, desperate, unmistakable. A woman. In pain. He'd made it through the back door quietly, Shadow at his side. The house was dark, except for a TV glow in the living room. Someone was passed out on the couch, a shotgun propped nearby. Jake's SEAL training kicked in automatically. Threat assessment: 1 male unconscious or asleep armed. Victim location: basement, based on the sound. Priority: get to the victim without alerting the threat. Shadow pressed against Jake's leg, vibrating with controlled aggression. The dog had spotted the man on the couch, too. "Stay," Jake whispered. Shadow obeyed, but every muscle in his body said he didn't want to. Jake moved through the house like a ghost. Down the hallway. Past family photos that told a story, a woman slowly disappearing, her smile fading in each frame. Past holes punched in walls. Past broken furniture hastily arranged to look normal. He found the basement door. Locked. "Hello?" The woman's voice was weaker now. "Is someone there?" "Ma'am, my name is Jake Harrison. I'm here to help you." Silence. Then a sob. A sound of pure relief that nearly broke Jake's heart. "The door, he locked it. I'm going to get you out. Can you tell me your name?" "Elena. Elena Martinez." Jake froze. Martinez. The name hit him like a bullet. "Elena, is your father Thomas Reyes?" The silence stretched for an eternity. "How do you know my father's name?" Jake leaned against the door, his hand trembling for the first time in 20 years. "Your father saved my life," he said. "In Afghanistan. He died. He died so I could live." Elena's voice came back, broken. "My father abandoned us. He chose the military over me and my mom. He talked about you every day." Jake's own voice cracked. "He carried your picture everywhere. His last words were about you. He said, 'Take care of them.' I spent years trying to find out who 'them' was, and now," a sound from the living room. Derek was waking up. Derek's boots hit the floor. Jake heard it, that heavy thud of a man rising from the couch, followed by the metallic click of a shotgun being lifted. "Who's there?" Jake pressed his back against the wall beside the basement door. His hand moved to his sidearm. Shadow had already repositioned, crouching low in the shadows of the hallway, ready to spring. "Elena." Derek's voice was thick with sleep and whiskey. "You making noise down there?" Jake held his breath. "I asked you a question." Footsteps, coming closer. Jake had maybe 10 seconds before Derek turned the corner and saw him. 10 seconds to decide, confront now, or wait for a better opening. His SEAL training screamed at him to wait. Assess. Plan. But Elena was in labor. Elena was Thomas Reyes's daughter, and every second counted. Derek's shadow stretched across the hallway floor. Jake made his choice. He stepped out, weapon raised. "Freeze." Derek's eyes went wide. For one frozen moment, the two men stared at each other. Derek with his shotgun half raised, Jake with his pistol aimed dead center at Derek's chest. "Who the hell are you? Put the weapon down." "This is my house. My house. You're the one breaking in." "I said put it down." Derek's face twisted into something ugly. "You're here for her, aren't you? She called you. That little..." Shadow exploded from the shadows. 80 pounds of Belgian Malinois hit Derek from the side jaws, clamping onto his forearm. The shotgun discharged into the ceiling as Derek screamed plaster raining down around them. "Get it off! Get it off me!" Jake moved fast. He kicked the shotgun away, sending it spinning across the floor. Shadow held on, growling deep in his chest, applying exactly enough pressure to immobilize without maiming. "Shadow, release!" The dog let go instantly, but stayed positioned, teeth bared, ready for the next command. Derek clutched his bleeding arm, tears streaming down his face. "You broke into my house. You sicked your dog on me. I'll have you arrested. You'll what?" Jake grabbed Derek by the collar and slammed him against the wall. "You'll explain to the police why your pregnant wife is locked in your basement. You'll explain the bruises I'm guessing cover her body. You'll explain why she had to whisper into a 911 line like her life depended on it." Derek's eyes flickered with something, fear maybe, or calculation. "She's crazy. You don't understand. She makes things up. Save it." Jake pulled zip ties from his tactical belt and secured Derek's wrists behind his back. The man struggled, cursing, threatening, promising lawsuits and prison time, and worse. Jake ignored him. He turned back to the basement door. The lock was a simple deadbolt, nothing fancy. He could break it easily. "Elena, I'm coming down. Can you hear me?" Her voice came back, weak, strained. "The baby. Something's wrong." Jake didn't hesitate. He drove his shoulder into the door once, twice. The frame splintered. The door flew open. The darkness below smelled of damp concrete and fear. "Shadow guard." The dog positioned himself over Derek's prone form, amber eyes never blinking. Jake descended into the basement. Elena had never seen an angel before. But when the man appeared at the bottom of the stairs, flashlight cutting through the darkness, she was certain that's what he was. Gray-haired, weathered face, kind eyes that held more pain than any one person should carry. And he knew her father. "I've got you." He knelt beside her, his voice steady and calm. "I've got you now." "The baby," Elena gasped, as another contraction ripped through her. "She's coming. She's coming now." Jake's flashlight swept over her. She saw his jaw tighten, saw him take in the bruises on her arms, the blood on her dress, the way she clutched her belly, like it was the only thing keeping her alive. "How far apart are the contractions? I don't 3 minutes, maybe less." He nodded once. "I'm a combat medic. I've delivered babies in worse conditions than this. You're going to be okay." "You don't know that." "No." His honesty surprised her. "But I know I'm not leaving until you and your daughter are safe. And I know your father didn't die so you could give up now." Elena felt tears streaming down her face. "I haven't spoken to him in 12 years. I never got to tell him I'm sorry. I never—" Another contraction. Elena screamed. Jake grabbed her hand. "Squeeze as hard as you need to. Break my fingers if you have to. But keep breathing. In through your nose, out through your mouth. That's it. That's good." The contraction passed. Elena slumped against the wall, exhausted. "Why did he save you?" she whispered. "Why you and not— Why did he choose the military over us?" Jake was quiet for a moment. "He didn't choose," he finally said. "He was tormented by leaving you and your mother. Every mission, every deployment, he told himself it was the last one. He was going to retire, come home, make things right. But he never did. No, he never got the chance." Jake's voice caught. "That day in Kandahar, we were clearing a building. Intel said it was empty. Intel was wrong. There was a grenade, and your father, he saw it before anyone else. He pushed me out of the way, covered it with his own body." Elena stared at him. His last words were, "Take care of them." I didn't know who he meant. I spent years trying to find out. Dead ends every time. Your mother had passed, and you— I changed my name when I married Derek. Elena Reyes became Elena Martinez. I wanted to forget everything about my old life. Including your father. Especially my father." Elena laughed bitterly, then winced as pain shot through her. "And look where it got me. Locked in a basement by a man who makes my father look like a saint." From upstairs, Derek's voice echoed down. "Elena, Elena, you tell that man to let me go. Tell him this is all a misunderstanding." Elena closed her eyes. "The misunderstanding is that I ever believed him." Jake pulled out his first aid kit. "We need to get you upstairs. Can you walk?" "I don't know." "Then I'll carry you." Before Elena could protest, Jake lifted her in his arms. She was lighter than she should be. Derek clearly hadn't been feeding her properly, but the baby added weight that made the stairs treacherous. Shadow met them at the top tail, wagging once when he saw Elena, then returning to his vigilant stance over Derek. "You think you've won?" Derek spat as Jake carried Elena past him. "You think you're some kind of hero? She's my wife. That's my baby. The law is on my side." Jake set Elena down on the couch, the same couch where Derek had been sleeping, but she was too exhausted to care. "The law is on the side of the woman you've been beating for 3 years. Jake's voice was ice. "The law is on the side of the baby you tried to starve out of existence. And when this storm clears and the police get here, the law is going to put you away for a very long time." Derek's face went pale. Then it hardened. "You're not a cop. You have no authority. Everything you've done tonight is illegal. Breaking and entering. Assault. False imprisonment. My lawyers will tear you apart." "Maybe." Jake knelt beside Elena and checked her pulse. Too fast, but steady. "But you'll be doing it from a cell. Shadow watch." The dog growled low and menacing. Derek shut up. The contractions were coming faster now. Elena gripped Jake's hand so hard she thought she might actually break bones. Each wave of pain felt like being torn in half, and each rest between felt shorter than the last. "Something's wrong," she gasped. It's not supposed to hurt this much. Is it?" Jake's face was calm, but Elena had spent 3 years learning to read the micro-expressions men tried to hide. She saw the flicker of concern in his eyes. "The baby might be in a difficult position. It happens sometimes. We need to— Don't lie to me." Elena grabbed his shirt. I've had enough lies to last a lifetime. Tell me the truth. Jake met her eyes. The baby might be breech. That means feet first instead of head first. It makes delivery more complicated, but not impossible. I've done it before. In a combat zone, in a village in Afghanistan. No electricity, no supplies, just me and a woman who hadn't eaten in 3 days. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Mother and baby both survived. Named the kid after me, actually. Elena almost laughed. Almost. Then the next contraction hit, and laughing was the furthest thing from her mind. I can feel her, Elena gasped. I can feel her trying to come. Don't push yet. I need to check the position first. The next few minutes were a blur of pain and clinical necessity. Jake was professional, efficient, gentle. Everything Derek had never been. He confirmed what he'd suspected. She's breech, but she's small enough that we can do this. You're going to have to trust me. I just met you. I know. You broke into my house. Technically, I broke into your husband's house. You have a very dangerous dog. Shadow's only dangerous to people who deserve it. Jake squeezed her hand. Elena, I spent 20 years as a Navy SEAL. I've been in firefights, hostage rescues operations that are still classified, and I have never left a mission incomplete. You and your daughter are my mission now. I will get you through this. Elena looked at him, this stranger who knew her father, this warrior who'd come through a blizzard to save her, this man who was asking her to trust him with her life and her baby's life. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Upstairs, Derek had been quiet for too long. Shadow sensed it first. The dog's ears pricked forward, his body tensing. Jake noticed. What is it, boy? A low growl. Jake turned to look at Derek and realized the man was no longer lying flat. He'd managed to work himself into a sitting position against the wall. His bound hands were behind his back, but his fingers were moving, working at something. Don't even think about it. Derek smiled, the kind of smile that made Jake's blood run cold. You know what I think. I think you're in over your head, old man. I think you came here expecting some scared housewife and a drunk with a shotgun. But you don't know who I am. You don't know what I'm capable of. I know exactly what you're capable of. I've seen men like you my whole career, cowards who hurt women and children because it makes them feel powerful. Derek's smile widened. See, that's where you're wrong. I'm not hurting her because it makes me feel powerful. I'm hurting her because she belongs to me. She's mine. That baby is mine, and you're just a speed bump. His hands came free. Jake saw the glint of metal too late, a small knife Derek had hidden somewhere on his body, the zip ties falling away. Derek lunged. Shadow intercepted him mid-leap, but Derek was ready this time. He caught the dog with a brutal kick to the ribs. Shadow yelped and tumbled sideways. Shadow! Jake drew his sidearm, but Derek was already too close. He tackled Jake, sending them both crashing into the wall. The gun skittered across the floor. They grappled. Derek was younger, stronger, and fighting with the desperation of a man who knew prison was waiting. Jake had training and experience, but he was also 62 years old and hadn't been in a real fight in years. Derek's hands found Jake's throat. I'm going to kill you, Derek hissed. Then I'm going to drag Elena back to the basement and finish what I started, and no one is ever going to find you. Jake's vision started to blur. His hands clawed at Derek's grip, but the younger man's strength was overwhelming. Then Shadow came out of nowhere. The dog's jaws clamped onto Derek's shoulder, biting deep. Derek screamed and released Jake, trying to throw the dog off. Jake gasped for air, his throat on fire. He spotted his gun across the room. Too far. But Derek's knife was on the ground, just within reach. He grabbed it. Derek finally managed to throw Shadow off. He turned back to Jake, face twisted with rage, and found the blade pressed against his chest. "Move, and I'll push this through your heart." Derek froze. "You're not a killer," he snarled. "I can see it in your eyes. You don't have what it takes." "You're right. I'm not a killer." Jake's voice was steady despite his burning lungs. "But I've killed dozens of men who thought the same thing you're thinking right now. And if you take one more step toward Elena or her baby, I will add your name to that list without losing a second of sleep." Derek stared at him. Jake stared back. The moment stretched into eternity. Then Derek's shoulders slumped. The fight drained out of him like water from a broken cup. "Fine," he muttered. "Fine. You win." Jake didn't trust him, would never trust him, but he lowered the knife slightly. Shadow guard. The dog positioned himself between Derek and the couch, where Elena lay blood matting his fur, but his eyes still sharp and dangerous. From the couch, Elena screamed. "Jake, she's coming. The baby's coming. Now!" There was no more time for threats or standoffs. Jake rushed to Elena's side. The baby's feet were already visible, tiny, perfect feet, emerging into a world that had given them nothing but pain so far. "Okay, Elena, this is it. I need you to push when I tell you and stop when I tell you. Can you do that?" Elena nodded, her face drenched in sweat, her body trembling with exhaustion and pain. "Push!" She bore down with everything she had. Jake guided the baby's legs, her hips, her tiny body inch by inch into the world. "Stop. Breathe. That's good. That's so good. I can't do this. You're already doing it. You're doing amazing. One more push. One more." Elena screamed and pushed. And then silence. The baby slipped into Jake's hands. Blue. Motionless. Not breathing. Elena saw his face change. "What's wrong? Why isn't she crying? Jake, why isn't she crying?" Jake cleared the baby's airway with practiced hands. He rubbed her back, her chest, stimulating circulation. He tilted her head back, slightly opened her mouth. Nothing. "Come on," he whispered. "Come on, little one. Don't do this. Don't give up." Elena sobbed. "Please, please, God, please." Jake bent down and gave the tiniest puff of breath into the baby's mouth. Once. Twice. A cough. A gasp. And then the most beautiful sound either of them had ever heard. A cry. The baby's face scrunched up, turning from blue to pink, and she wailed at the top of her tiny lungs, announcing to the world that she was here, she was alive, and she was not going quietly. Jake laughed, actually laughed, tears streaming down his weathered face. "There she is. There she is." He wrapped the baby in his jacket. Nothing else was clean enough, and placed her on Elena's chest. Elena looked down at her daughter. This tiny, perfect human being who had survived everything. The abuse, the starvation, the stress, the basement, the breech birth. Against all odds, she was here. "Hi," Elena whispered. "Hi, baby girl. I'm your mama." The baby's crying softened to a whimper, then stopped entirely as she nestled against her mother's skin. "What are you going to name her?" Jake asked softly. Elena looked up at him. This stranger who had become her guardian angel. This man who had carried her father's guilt for 20 years and finally found a way to repay it. "Hope," she said. Her name is Hope." From across the room, Derek watched. His shoulder was bleeding where Shadow had bitten him. His wrists were raw from the zip ties that Jake had replaced tighter this time. His dreams of control, of ownership, of keeping Elena forever were crumbling around him. But his eyes weren't defeated. They were calculating. The storm outside was still raging. No one was coming, not tonight, maybe not tomorrow. The old man was exhausted. The dog was injured. The woman was weak from childbirth. All Derek had to do was wait. Watch. Plan. Because this wasn't over, not by a long shot. Hope had been alive for exactly 47 minutes when the power went out. Elena felt the darkness swallow them whole. One moment there was light, dim flickering, but light, and the next, nothing. Just the howling wind outside and the sound of her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. "Jake, I'm here." His voice came from somewhere to her left. "Stay calm. The storm probably took out the power lines." "Derek, Shadow's got him, don't worry." But Elena did worry. 3 years with Derek had taught her that darkness was his ally. Darkness was where bad things happened. Darkness was where he did his worst. Hope whimpered against her chest, sensing her mother's fear. "Shh, baby girl. It's okay. Mama's here." Jake's flashlight clicked on, cutting a narrow beam through the blackness. Elena saw his face, tired blood on his collar from the fight. But steady. Always steady. "We need to move," he said. "The temperature's dropping. Without heat, this room will be below freezing within the hour." "Move where?" "There's a fireplace in the other room. I saw it when I came in. If we can get a fire going, we can survive until morning." Elena tried to sit up. Pain shot through her entire body. The birth had taken everything she had, and she wasn't sure there was anything left. "I don't know if I can walk." "You don't have to." Jake lifted her again, cradling her and Hope together in his arms. Elena wanted to protest. She'd been a burden her entire marriage, and she hated being one now, but her body gave her no choice. "Shadow, bring him." The dog growled, and Elena heard Derek curse as he was forced to his feet. "You think this changes anything?" Derek's voice floated through the darkness. "You think one night makes you her hero? I've had 3 years with her. 3 years. You don't know her like I do. You don't know what she really is." "Shut up." Jake's voice was flat. "She's weak. That's what she is. Weak and pathetic and desperate for anyone to tell her she matters. I gave her that. I gave her purpose. Without me, she's nothing." Elena felt the words land like punches, because part of her, the broken, beaten part, still believed them. "Elena," Jake's voice cut through the poison. "Look at me." She lifted her eyes to his. "You survived 3 years of hell. You protected your daughter with your own body. You made a phone call that could have gotten you killed because you refused to give up. That's not weakness. That's the strongest thing I've ever seen." Derek laughed. "Oh, that's precious. The old soldier thinks he's going to fix her. Newsflash, hero, she's been broken since before I met her. Daddy issues abandonment, trauma, desperate need for approval. I just gave her what she was begging for." Shadow snarled, and there was a yelp of pain. "I told you to shut up," Jake said. They reached the room with the fireplace. Jake set Elena down on an old armchair, keeping Hope bundled against her chest. The baby had fallen asleep, a mercy given everything happening around her. "Stay here. I'm going to get the fire started." Elena watched him work. His movements were efficient, practiced the movements of a man who'd survived countless situations worse than this. Within minutes, flames crackled in the fireplace, pushing back the cold and the darkness. Derek sat against the far wall, hands bound, Shadow positioned between him and the rest of them. The dog hadn't taken his eyes off the prisoner since the fight. "That mutt is going to pay for what it did to me," Derek muttered. Shadow's lips pulled back from his teeth. "Keep talking," Jake said without looking up. "See what happens." The warmth from the fire slowly seeped into Elena's bones. She looked down at Hope, still sleeping, still breathing, still perfect, despite everything. This tiny miracle who had fought just as hard as her mother to survive. "She looks like you." Elena glanced up. Jake had settled into a chair across from her, close enough to reach her, if needed positioned to keep Derek in his peripheral vision. "You think so? Same nose, same chin. She's going to be beautiful." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. When was the last time anyone had said something kind to her? Something that wasn't designed to manipulate or control? "Can I ask you something?" Jake nodded. "My father, what was he like at the end?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with memory. "He was the best man I ever served with. Tough as nails, but fair. He never asked anyone to do something he wouldn't do himself. And he talked about you constantly." "He did, every night. He'd pull out that photograph you and your mother and just stare at it. Sometimes he'd tell stories about when you were little. How you used to put on plays for him in the living room. How you wanted to be a teacher because you loved helping people learn." Elena's breath caught. She'd forgotten about the plays. Forgotten how her father used to sit in the audience of one clapping like she'd just performed on Broadway. "He said leaving you was the biggest mistake of his life. He said he was going to fix it. As soon as this deployment was over, he was going to retire, come home, and spend the rest of his life making it up to you. But he never came home. No, he never came home." From across the room, Derek snorted. "Touching, really. A bedtime story about the deadbeat dad who chose strangers over his own family. I'm sure that makes everything better." Elena's jaw tightened. "At least he died doing something meaningful," she said quietly. "What are you going to be remembered for, Derek? The man who beat his pregnant wife, the coward who locked her in a basement." Derek's eyes flashed with rage. "Watch your mouth! Or what, you'll hit me again." Elena felt something shift inside her, something that had been dormant for 3 years, buried under layers of fear and survival. "You can't touch me anymore. You can't hurt me. You can't control me. It's over. Nothing is over until I say it's over. You don't get to say anything anymore." Elena's voice grew stronger with each word. "You don't get to decide when I eat, when I sleep, who I talk to, what I wear. You don't get to tell me I'm worthless while you drain my bank accounts and isolate me from everyone who loves me. You don't get to put your hands on me ever again." Derek stared at her like he was seeing a stranger. "Elena?" "My name is Elena Reyes. I took your name because I thought it would make you happy. Because I thought if I gave you enough pieces of myself, you'd eventually stop taking. But you never stopped. You just kept taking and taking until there was nothing left." She held Hope tighter. "But you didn't get her. She's mine. And she always will be." The fire crackled in the silence that followed. Jake watched Elena with something like pride in his eyes. Derek watched her with something like fear. 2 hours passed. The storm showed no signs of letting up. Jake had tried his phone repeatedly, still no signal. They were completely cut off from the outside world. Hope had woken up hungry. Elena fed her, marveling at how natural it felt, despite everything. This tiny person who depended on her completely. This reason to keep fighting. "We should sleep in shifts," Jake said. "I'll take first watch. You need rest." "I don't know if I can sleep." "Try. You've been through more in the last 12 hours than most people go through in a lifetime. Your body needs recovery time." Elena wanted to argue, but exhaustion was pulling at her like an undertow. Her eyes felt like sandpaper, Her entire body ached. "You'll wake me if anything happens." The second anything changes. Elena nodded and closed her eyes. Hope was warm against her chest, and despite everything, the danger, the uncertainty, the man who wanted her dead sitting 10 feet away, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Safe. She drifted off within minutes. Jake watched her sleep. There was something painfully familiar about Elena Reyes. Not just her father's features in her face, but something deeper. The resilience, the stubborn refusal to give up even when everything was stacked against her. Thomas Reyes had been like that. The man had dragged Jake 2 miles through enemy territory with a bullet in his leg, refusing to leave him behind. "No man left behind" wasn't just a motto to Reyes, it was a religion. And now his daughter had that same fire. Shadow whined softly and nudged Jake's hand. "I know, boy, I know." The dog's ribs were bruised from Derek's kick, but nothing was broken. Shadow had survived worse. They both had. Jake glanced at Derek. The man hadn't spoken in over an hour, but he wasn't sleeping. His eyes were open, fixed on the ceiling, his mind clearly working on something. "Whatever you're planning," Jake said quietly, "don't." Derek's eyes slid to meet his. "Who says I'm planning anything? I've been reading men like you for 40 years. I know what calculation looks like." Derek smiled. That same cold smile from before. "You know what I think? I think you're tired. I think you're old. I think that dog is hurt, and that woman is weak, and that baby is helpless. And I think once you fall asleep, because you will fall asleep, old man, everyone does, I'm going to finish what I started." Jake leaned forward. "Let me tell you something about Navy SEALs. We train for 72 hours without sleep. We operate in conditions that would kill normal men. We learn to stay alert when our bodies are screaming at us to quit." He paused. "I'm 62 years old. I've got bad knees and a shoulder that never healed right. But I promise you this, I will outlast you. And if you make one move toward that woman or her baby, I will end you without hesitation." Derek held his gaze for a long moment. Then he looked away. "We'll see," he muttered. "We'll see." The sound woke Jake instantly. Not a loud sound, just a soft scrape, barely audible over the wind. But after decades of combat, Jake's body was trained to react to the slightest anomaly. His eyes snapped open. Derek was gone. The zip ties lay on the floor, cut clean through. The knife Jake had confiscated was missing. Shadow. The dog was already on his feet. Fur bristled a low growl, rumbling in his chest. "Elena! Elena, wake up!" Elena's eyes flew open. "What? He's loose. Stay here. Don't move." Jake grabbed his pistol and moved toward the doorway. Shadow fell in beside him, nose working, tracking Derek's scent through the house. The hallway was dark. Jake's flashlight cut through the blackness, revealing nothing but empty space and shadows. "Where did he go?" Shadow's head snapped toward the back of the house. The dog took off running. Jake followed. They found Derek in the kitchen, rummaging through drawers with frantic energy. He spun when Jake's flashlight hit him, and Jake saw what was in his hands. A second shotgun. The one from the barn. The one Jake hadn't found. "Drop it!" Derek raised the weapon. "You first!" They stood frozen, guns pointed at each other, neither willing to make the first move. "Think about what you're doing," Jake said. "You kill me, you still have to get past my dog. You kill my dog, Elena's going to fight you with everything she has. And even if you win, even if you somehow get control of this situation, the police are coming. The storm will clear, and they will find you. There's no version of this where you walk away free. Derek's hands trembled, but the gun stayed level. Then I'll run. Take Elena and the baby disappear. I've done it before. Elena won't go with you. She doesn't have a choice. She always had a choice. You just made her forget that. Something flickered in Derek's eyes. Doubt, maybe. Or recognition of a truth he'd been denying for years. She was happy before, he said almost to himself. When we first met, she was happy. She was never happy with you. She was surviving you. There's a difference. Derek's jaw tightened. You don't know anything about us. I know you isolated her, controlled her, beat her. I know you locked her in a basement while she was in labor. I know you're pointing a gun at me right now because you'd rather kill than let her go. Jake's voice dropped. That's not love. That's ownership, and it ends tonight. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Derek's finger tightened on the trigger. Shadow launched himself through the air. The shotgun went off with a deafening roar. Jake felt something hot slice across his arm, buckshot grazing him, but he didn't stop. He charged forward as Shadow brought Derek down the gun, clattering away. This time Jake didn't hold back. His fist connected with Derek's jaw. Once. Twice. 3 times. All the rage he'd been suppressing since he walked into this house, all the fury on behalf of Elena and Hope, and every woman who'd ever been trapped by a man like this, he poured it into his fists. Derek stopped fighting. Jake stopped hitting. He sat back, breathing hard, his knuckles split and bleeding. Derek lay motionless on the floor, unconscious, but alive. Shadow stood over him, ready to strike if he moved. Jake. Elena's voice came from the doorway. She stood there, hope in her arms, terror written across her face. It's over, Jake said. It's really over. Elena looked at Derek's prone form, looked at Jake's bloody knuckles, looked at Shadow still standing guard. And then she did something Jake didn't expect. She walked over to Derek, looked down at him for a long moment, and spoke. I forgive you. Jake stared at her. What? Not for him, for me. Elena's voice was steady, clear, stronger than it had been all night. I'm not going to carry this hate anymore. I'm not going to let what he did poison the rest of my life. He tried to destroy me, and he failed, and I refuse to give him any more of my energy. She turned and walked back to the living room, hope nestled against her chest. Jake watched her go. In 40 years of military service, he'd met presidents and generals and warriors of every kind, but he'd never met anyone braver than Elena Reyes. Dawn came slowly. The storm had finally exhausted itself, leaving behind a world blanketed in white. Through the windows, Jake could see the first gray light of morning creeping over the mountains. His phone buzzed. He grabbed it, heart pounding. 1 bar of signal. Barely enough. He dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? This is Jake Harrison. I'm at a farmhouse off County Road 17, approximately 12 miles northeast of Whitehall. I have a woman who just gave birth, a newborn infant, and a male suspect in custody. We need medical assistance and law enforcement immediately. Sir, can you confirm your location? Jake rattled off the coordinates from his GPS. We're dispatching units now. Can you tell me about the situation? Domestic violence case. The suspect is Elena Martinez's husband. He's been holding her prisoner for 3 years. There may be evidence of additional crimes on the property. Silence on the line. Did you say 3 years? Yes, ma'am. 3 years. More silence. Then, help is on the way, sir. Stay on the line. Jake looked at Elena, who was watching him with exhausted hope in her eyes. They're coming, he said. It's almost over. Elena nodded. Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling. Hope chose that moment to wake up and cry. And somehow, despite everything, that tiny wail sounded like victory. The helicopter touched down 47 minutes after Jake's call. Elena heard it before she saw it, that distinctive thump of rotors cutting through the morning air. A sound that used to mean nothing to her, but now meant everything. Help was here. She held Hope tighter, watching through the window as figures emerged from the helicopter. Paramedics. Sheriff's deputies. A woman in a suit who moved with the authority of someone used to being in charge. Jake met them at the door. "Jake Harrison." "That's me." The woman in the suit extended her hand. "Special Agent Maria Santos, FBI. We got a flag on your 911 call. Mind telling me how a retired Navy SEAL ended up delivering a baby in the middle of a domestic violence situation? Long story. I've got time." Elena watched Jake lead the agent inside while paramedics rushed toward her. Hands checked her pulse, her blood pressure, Hope's breathing. Voices asked questions she could barely process. "Ma'am, can you tell me your name?" "Elena. Elena Reyes." "And the baby? Hope. Her name is Hope." The paramedic smiled. "That's beautiful. We're going to take you both to the hospital now. Is there anyone we should contact?" Elena opened her mouth to say no. 3 years of isolation had left her with no one. No friends, no family, no— Wait. She looked at the paramedic. "My mother's sister. My Aunt Rosa. She lives in Denver. I haven't spoken to her since Derek made me cut everyone off. But she might still— We'll find her. Don't worry." They loaded Elena onto a stretcher, Hope nestled in a special carrier beside her. As they wheeled her toward the helicopter, she caught sight of Derek being dragged out of the house in handcuffs. Their eyes met. Derek's face was swollen, bruised from Jake's fists, but his eyes were still sharp, still calculating, still promising that this wasn't over. Elena didn't look away. "You don't scare me anymore," she said. Derek said nothing. The deputies shoved him into the back of a patrol car, and for the first time in 3 years, Elena watched her husband disappear, not into their bedroom, not into his drunk rages, not into the darkness of the basement, but into the custody of people who would finally hold him accountable. It felt like breathing for the first time. The hospital in Bozeman was small but efficient. Elena spent the first 3 hours being examined, treated, and questioned. Doctors cataloged her injuries, old and new. Nurses cooed over Hope, marveling at how healthy she was despite the circumstances. A social worker sat with Elena, gently explaining the resources available to her. But it was the FBI agent who asked the hardest questions. "Mrs. Martinez." "Reyes. My name is Elena Reyes." Agent Santos nodded, making a note. "Ms. Reyes, I need to ask you about your husband's activities over the past 3 years. Did you ever see him with other women?" Elena frowned. "What do you mean? Did he bring anyone to the farmhouse, talk about other relationships, mention names you didn't recognize?" "No, he was possessive, obsessively possessive. He barely let me out of his sight. Why are you asking?" Agent Santos set down her pen. "When our forensics team arrived at the farmhouse this morning, they found something in the barn, a hidden room behind the hay storage. Inside were documents, photographs, and evidence suggesting your husband has been involved in human trafficking for at least 5 years. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. "What?" "We believe he was part of a network that targets vulnerable women, immigrants, runaways, women in difficult situations. They isolate them, control them, and eventually," Santos paused, "eventually they sell them." Elena's hands began to shake. That can't be. We found records of at least 3 other women, Ms. Reyes. Women who disappeared under circumstances similar to yours. Women whose families never stopped looking for them. Elena thought she might be sick. 3 years. 3 years she'd lived in that house believing she was Derek's only victim. 3 years she'd convinced herself that if she just survived, just held on, everything would eventually be okay. And the whole time he'd been doing this to others. "Where are they?" Elena whispered. "The other women." "That's what we're trying to find out. The records are incomplete. Some of them are coded. We believe there may be additional locations, safe houses, transfer points." Santos leaned forward. "Anything you can tell us about your husband's activities, his contacts, his patterns, it could help us find them." Elena closed her eyes. 3 years of memories flooded back. Derek's late-night phone calls, his unexplained absences, the times he came home smelling like perfume and explained it away as nothing. She'd always known something was wrong. She just hadn't wanted to see it. "There was a man," she said slowly. "Derek called him Victor. They spoke on the phone sometimes late at night. Derek always went into another room, but I heard pieces. Numbers, locations. Once I heard him say, 'The new shipment is ready.'" Santos's expression sharpened. "Do you remember anything else? A last name, an accent?" "No, but..." Elena hesitated. "There's a laptop. Derek kept it locked in his truck. He thought I didn't know about it, but I found it once when I was looking for the car keys. He caught me before I could open it." "What did he do?" Elena touched her ribs unconsciously. "He made sure I never looked for anything again." Santos stood up. "That laptop could be the key to everything. If we can access his files, his communications, we might be able to find the other victims before it's too late." "Before it's too late?" Santos met her eyes. "The network doesn't tolerate loose ends, Ms. Reyes. If they know your husband has been arrested, they'll start covering their tracks, moving the women. Or worse." Elena's heart stopped. "You have to find them." "We will. I promise you." Santos headed for the door, then paused. "You did something incredibly brave, you know. Making that phone call. It didn't just save your life and your daughter's. It might save 3 other women, too." The door closed behind her. Elena looked down at Hope, sleeping peacefully in the hospital bassinet. "Mama did something brave," she whispered. "Did you hear that maybe brave runs in the family after all?" Jake found her an hour later. He appeared in the doorway, arm bandaged, where the buckshot had grazed him shadow at his side. The hospital had made an exception for the dog after Jake explained he was a decorated military canine, or maybe after Shadow had simply refused to be separated from his partner. "How are you feeling?" Elena managed a weak smile. "Like I was hit by a truck. How about you?" "I've had worse." Jake settled into the chair beside her bed. "The FBI wants to talk to me. Apparently stumbling onto an active human trafficking investigation raises some questions." "They told you. They told me." Jake's jaw tightened. "I served with men who fought against this kind of evil overseas. Never thought I'd find it in my own backyard." Elena was quiet for a moment. "There are other women, Jake. Women like me. Maybe worse than me. And they're still out there. The FBI will find them. What if they don't? What if they're too late?" Jake studied her face. "What are you thinking?" Elena sat up slowly, wincing at the pain, but pushing through it. "I lived with Derek for 3 years. I know his habits, his patterns, his tells. I know when he's lying and when he's scared. And right now in that jail cell, he's scared. I saw it in his eyes when they took him away." "Elena, if I talk to him, I might be able to get him to reveal something the FBI can use. You just gave birth 8 hours ago. You're in no condition to..." "3 women, Jake." Elena's voice cracked. 3 women who are trapped right now wondering if anyone is coming for them. I know what that feels like. I know the darkness they're living in. If there's anything I can do to help them, anything at all, I have to try." Jake was silent for a long moment. Then Shadow walked over and rested his head on Elena's lap. "He likes you," Jake said. "I like him too. Shadow doesn't like many people. Took him months to warm up to me." Jake reached out and scratched the dog behind the ears. "He's a good judge of character. Better than most humans." Elena stroked Shadow's fur, feeling some of her anxiety melt away. "Will you help me?" she asked. "Help me talk to Derek." Jake sighed. "Your father would kill me for putting you in danger. Again." "My father would understand. He spent his whole life fighting for people who couldn't fight for themselves. It's in my blood." Jake met her eyes, held them, searched for something. Whatever he found, it seemed to convince him. "I'll talk to Agent Santos, but you don't go anywhere near Derek without backup. And if he says anything that makes you uncomfortable, we're done. Deal? Deal." The county jail was 20 minutes from the hospital. Elena shouldn't have been there. The doctors had protested, Agent Santos had warned against it, and Jake had made her promise 3 times that she would walk away if things got too intense. But she was there anyway, sitting across from Derek in a concrete interview room, a 2-way mirror behind her, and Hope safe with a nurse back at the hospital. Derek looked different in prison orange. Smaller somehow. Diminished. "You came." "I came. Looking for closure." Derek's voice was hoarse. "Forgiveness. A chance to tell me what a monster I am." "I already forgave you. Remember?" Derek's eyes narrowed. "Then why are you here?" "The FBI found your laptop." The color drained from Derek's face. "They're decoding the files right now. They know about Victor. They know about the network. And they know about the 3 women." Derek said nothing. "They're going to find them, Derek, whether you help or not. The only question is whether you go down alone or whether you take Victor and everyone else with you. You don't know what you're talking about. I know you're terrified. I can see it in your eyes, the same look you had whenever you thought someone might find out what you were doing. You're not scared of prison, Derek. You're scared of what Victor will do when he finds out you got caught." Derek's jaw tightened. Elena leaned forward. 3 years you beat me. 3 years you controlled me. 3 years you made me believe I was worthless. But you were wrong about something." "What?" "You said I was weak. But I'm not weak. I'm observant. I watched you for 3 years, Derek. I know your tells, your patterns, your secrets. And I know that right now you're sitting there wondering if Victor already knows you're here. Wondering if he's already sent someone. Wondering if you're going to make it through your first night in prison." Derek swallowed hard. "Victor doesn't forget," Elena continued. "He doesn't forgive. You told me that once when you thought I was asleep. You said Victor killed the last man who failed him. Killed him and his whole family. How do you talk in your sleep, Derek? All those whiskey nights when you thought you were so smart, so careful. You told me everything." Derek stared at her like he was seeing a stranger. "Who are you?" "I'm the woman you underestimated." Elena stood up. "The FBI is offering protection. Full immunity for Victor's network in exchange for testimony. Names, locations, everything. It's a one-time offer. After midnight tonight, it disappears." "I can't." "You can, and you will, because the alternative is spending the rest of your short life looking over your shoulder, wondering when Victor's people are going to find you." Elena walked toward the door. "You have until midnight." "Elena." She paused, hand on the door. "For what it's worth," Derek said, his voice barely audible. "I did love you, in my own way." Elena turned back. "No, you didn't. You owned me. There's a difference." She walked out and didn't look back. Derek broke at 11:47 p.m. The FBI got everything: names, locations, safe houses, contact numbers. Viktor Kozlov, a Ukrainian national with connections to trafficking operations across 6 states, 3 distribution points, and most importantly, the addresses where the women were being held. Agent Santos coordinated the raids personally. Elena watched from the hospital, Jake and Shadow beside her, as reports came in through the night. One location cleared 2 women, recovered, shaken, but alive. Second location cleared 1 woman, found badly injured but breathing. Third location empty. They'd been too late, but the trail was still warm. By dawn, all 3 women were safe. 2 of them were reunited with families who had given up hope years ago. One had no family left, no one waiting for her. Until Agent Santos mentioned that another survivor, a woman named Elena, had specifically asked about her. Her name was Lily Chen. She was 23 years old, a former college student from Seattle who'd disappeared 4 years ago during a spring break trip to Montana. Her parents had died in a car accident 6 months after her disappearance, never knowing what happened to their daughter. Elena met her 3 days after the raids. Lily was thin-haunted, with eyes that recognized Elena's scars even before they spoke. "You're the one," Lily said. "The one who made the call." "I didn't do anything special. You survived. You spoke up. You led them to us." Lily's voice broke. "Do you know how many times I prayed for someone to find us? How many times I thought no one was coming?" Elena reached out and took Lily's hand. "Someone came for me too. A man I'd never met, a dog I'd never seen in the middle of a storm that should have made rescue impossible. I don't know why I got lucky. I don't know why I made that call at exactly the right moment. But I know I'm not going to waste it." "What do you mean?" Elena looked at Jake, who was watching from across the room. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure no woman ever feels as alone as I did. As you did. As the others did." Lily squeezed her hand. "Can I help?" Elena smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." 1 week later, Elena left the hospital. Jake was waiting outside with Shadow, his truck packed with her few belongings, the things the FBI had cleared from the farmhouse that didn't count as evidence. "Where to?" he asked. Elena looked down at Hope, now 9 days old, healthy and thriving, despite her dramatic entrance into the world. "I don't know. I don't have anywhere to go." "You could stay with me?" Elena looked up. "What?" "I've got a ranch, plenty of room. Shadow's already bonded with you, and he doesn't bond with just anyone. Plus..." Jake hesitated. "Your father asked me to take care of you. 20 years late, but I'd like to make good on that promise." "Jake, I can't. It's not charity. I'm not good at being alone. Never have been. And Shadow needs someone to fuss over him besides me." Jake's voice softened. "We've both been carrying ghosts for too long, Elena. Maybe it's time we let them rest." Elena felt tears streaming down her face. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes." Hope chose that moment to gurgle, reaching one tiny hand toward Shadow. The dog leaned in, sniffing gently, tail wagging for the first time since the raid. Elena laughed through her tears. "I think she's saying yes for me." Jake smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. "Then let's go home." The drive to Jake's ranch took 2 hours. Elena spent most of it watching the Montana landscape roll by, seeing it for the first time without fear, without walls, without Derek's shadow hanging over everything. She was free. It didn't feel real yet. Maybe it never would completely. The nightmares would come, she knew that. The flinches, the flashbacks, the moments when a sound or a smell would transport her back to that house of horrors. But she would survive them, because she was Elena Reyes, daughter of a war hero, mother of hope, survivor of the unsurvivable. And she was finally going home. 1 year changed everything. Elena stood at the kitchen window of Jake's ranch, watching Hope take her first wobbly steps across the living room floor. Shadow walked beside the toddler patient, and protective, ready to catch her if she fell. "Dada!" Hope squealed, reaching for Jake. Elena's heart clenched. Hope had started calling Jake Dada 3 months ago. Neither of them had corrected her. "Come on, little one," Jake said, kneeling with his arms open. 3 more steps. You can do it." Hope wobbled, steadied herself against Shadow's back, took 1 step, 2, 3. She crashed into Jake's arms, giggling. "That's my girl." Jake lifted her high, spinning her gently. "Did you see that, Elena?" 3 whole steps. Elena wiped her eyes. "I saw." This was their life now. Quiet mornings, laughter. A family built not from blood, but from something stronger, from survival, from choice, from the stubborn refusal to let darkness win. But Elena knew it couldn't last forever. Because today was the day. Derek's trial. The courthouse in Helena was packed. Media from across the country had descended on the small Montana town. Derek Martinez, or rather Derek Volkov, his real name, revealed during the investigation, had become the face of a trafficking ring that spanned 7 states. Elena sat in the front row. Hope, with a babysitter back at the ranch, Jake beside her. Shadow had been left behind too, though he'd whined at the door as they left. "You don't have to do this," Jake said quietly. "Yes, I do." The prosecution had asked Elena to testify, to tell the world what Derek had done to her, to put a human face on the statistics, the case files, the evidence photos that didn't capture the terror of living with a monster. She'd agreed immediately. Not for revenge, not even for justice. For every woman still trapped. For every victim who'd never get to speak. For the girls who might be saved because one survivor had the courage to stand up and say, "This happened to me, and it will never happen again." The bailiff's voice cut through her thoughts. "All rise. Court is now in session." Elena stood. Her legs trembled, but she didn't fall. She was done falling. Derek looked different. A year in federal custody had stripped away the confidence, the arrogance, the cruel smile that used to make Elena's blood run cold. He sat at the defense table in a cheap suit, handcuffed, shoulders hunched. He looked broken. Elena felt nothing. The prosecution calls Elena Reyes to the stand. She walked forward, acutely aware of every eye in the courtroom following her. The judge, the jury, the reporters with their notebooks and hungry expressions. And Derek. He watched her approach the witness stand, with something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Fear. Elena placed her hand on the Bible. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?" "I do." She sat down. The prosecutor, a woman named Catherine Wells, who'd spent 20 years putting traffickers behind bars, approached the stand. "Ms. Reyes, can you describe your relationship with the defendant?" Elena took a breath. "I met Derek Martinez, Derek Volkov, at a friend's wedding 6 years ago. He was charming, attentive, everything I thought I wanted. We dated for 8 months before he proposed." I said yes. "And when did things change? Gradually. So gradually I didn't notice until it was too late. He started isolating me from my friends, then my family. He convinced me to quit my job, move to an isolated farmhouse in Montana. He said it would be romantic, a fresh start. What happened after you moved? Elena's voice steadied. The first time he hit me was 3 weeks after we arrived. He'd been drinking. I said something he didn't like, I don't even remember what. He backhanded me across the face and then cried for an hour apologizing, promising it would never happen again. Did it happen again? It never stopped. The courtroom was silent. Elena continued describing 3 years of abuse in clinical detail. The beatings, the starvation, the psychological torture designed to make her believe she was worthless, that no one would ever want her, that she deserved everything he did to her. She described the pregnancy, Derek's rage when he found out, his threats to kill the baby if she ever tried to leave. She described the night she made the 911 call. I didn't think anyone would hear me. Elena said, her voice cracking for the first time. I whispered because I knew if Derek caught me, he would kill me. But I had to try. For my daughter. For the baby inside me who deserved a chance at life. What happened next? Derek found me. He locked me in the basement. I went into labor alone in the dark, convinced I was going to die. But you didn't die. No. Elena looked at Jake, sitting in the front row. Someone heard me. A retired Navy SEAL named Jake Harrison. He came through a blizzard with his dog to save a woman he'd never met. He delivered my daughter in that basement and protected us until help arrived. And during the investigation, what else was discovered? Elena turned to face the jury directly. I found out I wasn't the only victim. Derek had been trafficking women for years. 3 women were rescued because of my 911 call. 3 women who'd been held prisoner, sold, treated like property. And there were others who didn't survive. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Ms. Reyes, the prosecutor said, is there anything else you'd like to say? Elena looked at Derek. He wouldn't meet her eyes. I want every woman watching this to know something, Elena said. If you're in a situation like mine, if someone is hurting you, controlling you, making you feel like you're worthless, it's not true. You matter. Your life matters. And there is help. There are people who will believe you, who will fight for you, who will come through the storm to save you. She paused. I spent 3 years believing I was alone. I wasn't. And neither are you. The defense attorney's cross-examination was brutal. He tried everything, questioning Elena's memory, her motives, her credibility. He suggested she was exaggerating, that she'd been a willing participant, that she was fabricating stories to gain sympathy. Elena didn't waver. You claim my client held you prisoner for 3 years, the attorney said, voice dripping with skepticism. Yet you never tried to escape, never called for help until that one night. Have you ever been beaten until you couldn't walk? Elena asked quietly. The attorney blinked. Have you ever been told every day for years that if you try to run you'll be killed, that your family will be killed, that no one will believe you because you're crazy, because you're worthless, because you're nothing? The courtroom was absolutely silent. I didn't call for help because I believed what he told me. I believed I was alone. I believed no one was coming. And by the time I found the courage to pick up that phone, I genuinely thought I was going to die. Elena's voice hardened. But I did it anyway. For my daughter. For the chance that maybe, just maybe, someone would hear. The defense attorney had no more questions. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Elena waited in a small room with Jake, Lily Chen, and the families of the other rescued women. Agent Santos checked in periodically, her face carefully neutral. Whatever happens, Lily said, holding Elena's hand, you changed everything. You know that, right? The jury might not convict. Elena, Lily's voice was fierce. You stood up in front of the world and told the truth. You named names. You exposed a network that had been operating for years. Because of you, 17 women have been rescued across the country. 17. Elena shook her head. That was the FBI. The FBI followed your lead, your testimony, your courage. Lily squeezed her hand. Whatever that jury decides, you already won. The door opened. Agent Santos stepped in. They're back. The courtroom felt different now, heavier, charged with electricity. Every person in the room seemed to be holding their breath. Elena sat in the front row again, Jake on one side, Lily on the other. Behind her, the families of the other victims. Reporters lined the walls, cameras ready. Derek sat at the defense table, pale and rigid. The judge turned to the jury foreman. Has the jury reached a verdict? We have your honor. On the count of human trafficking, how does the jury find guilty? A sob escaped someone behind Elena. On the count of kidnapping, how does the jury find guilty? Elena's hands began to shake. On the count of aggravated assault, how does the jury find guilty? Derek's head dropped. The judge continued through 18 charges. Trafficking, kidnapping, assault, conspiracy, false imprisonment. Each count met with the same word. Guilty, guilty, guilty. When it was over, Derek looked up. His eyes found Elena's across the courtroom. She expected rage, hatred, a promise of revenge. Instead, she saw something she'd never seen in 3 years of marriage. Defeat. Total, absolute defeat. Derek Volkov, the judge said, you have been found guilty on all counts. Sentencing will take place in 30 days. Until then, you will remain in federal custody without bail. The gavel came down. It was over. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed, and reporters shouted questions. Elena ignored them all. She walked down the steps, Jake and Shadow beside her, Lily trailing behind. The sun was setting over Helena, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. Ms. Reyes, how do you feel about the verdict? Elena paused. She turned to face the crowd of reporters, the cameras, the microphones thrust toward her face. I feel grateful, she said. Grateful for the FBI agents who worked this case. Grateful for Jake Harrison and Shadow who saved my life. Grateful for every person who believed me when I said I needed help. What's next for you? Elena smiled. I'm going home to my daughter. I'm going to hold her and tell her that the world isn't always kind, but there are good people in it. People who fight for justice. People who refuse to look away. Do you have any message for other victims of domestic violence? Elena looked directly into the nearest camera. You are not alone. You are not worthless. You are not trapped. I know it feels that way. I felt that way for 3 years. But there is a way out. There are people who will help you. And your life is worth fighting for. She turned and walked away. This time, she didn't look back. 6 months later, Elena stood at a podium in Washington, D.C. The room was filled with senators, advocates, and survivors. Jake sat in the front row, Hope on his lap, Shadow at his feet. Lily sat beside them along with the other women whose lives had been saved by Elena's call. Elena was there to speak in support of the Reyes Act, a new federal law designed to strengthen protections for trafficking victims and increase resources for survivors of domestic violence. They'd named it after her father. 22 years ago, Elena began. My father made a choice. He threw himself on a grenade to save the lives of his fellow soldiers. He died believing he had failed his family, that he had chosen duty over love, service over his daughter. Her voice caught. But my father didn't fail. His sacrifice saved the life of a man named Jake Harrison. And 20 years later, Jake came through a blizzard to save me and my daughter. My father's love didn't disappear when he died. It found a way back to me. Elena looked at Jake. He nodded, eyes glistening. This law isn't just about policy. It's about sending a message. To every woman hiding bruises, to every child living in fear, to every survivor wondering if their story matters. Elena straightened. Your story matters. Your life matters. And we will fight for you. The room erupted in applause. The drive back to Montana took 2 days. Elena insisted on taking the scenic route. She wanted Hope to see the country, the mountains, the plains, the endless sky that had once felt like a prison, but now felt like freedom. You did good back there, Jake said as they crossed into Montana. I was terrified. Couldn't tell, Elena laughed. Liar. Okay, I could tell a little. Jake grinned. But you pushed through it. That's what counts. Hope babbled from her car seat, reaching for Shadow, who had somehow contorted himself into the back seat to be near her. What now? Elena asked. What do you mean? The trial's over. The law passed. Derek's going to prison for life. What do we do now? Jake was quiet for a moment. We live, he said finally. We raise that little girl. We take care of each other. We remember the ones we lost and fight for the ones still out there. That simple, and that hard. Jake glanced at her. Is that enough for you? Elena thought about everything she'd been through. The abuse, the terror. The night she whispered into a phone, not knowing if anyone would hear. And then she thought about what came after. The rescue, the birth, the trial, the law. The 17 women saved, the family she'd found, in the most unlikely place. Yeah, she said. That's enough. 1 year later, Elena returned to the farmhouse. Not Derek's farmhouse that had been demolished, the land sold, the memories scattered to the wind. She returned to her father's grave. Jake had found it during his years of searching a military cemetery outside of Denver, where Thomas Reyes was buried with full honors. Elena had never visited, never had the courage. But today was different. Today she brought hope. The headstone was simple. Name, rank, dates of service. Beloved soldier, forever remembered. Elena knelt in the grass, hope in her arms. Hi, Dad. The wind rustled through the trees, almost like an answer. I brought someone to meet you. This is Hope, your granddaughter. Elena's voice wavered. She's got your stubbornness, your fire. She's going to do amazing things. Hope reached for the headstone, tiny fingers tracing the letters. I spent so many years angry at you, angry that you left, angry that you chose the military over us, angry that you died before I could tell you how much I hated you. Elena wiped her eyes. But I understand now. You didn't choose duty over love. You chose to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. You chose to be brave when it would have been easier to be safe. And in the end, your choice saved me. She placed a photograph on the grave. Jake, Shadow. Hope and Elena, the family. Thomas Reyes had asked Jake to protect. I forgive you, Dad. And I finally understand what you tried to teach me. Elena stood lifting Hope in her arms. Love doesn't end when we die. It finds a way back. It always finds a way back. She turned and walked toward Jake and Shadow, waiting at the car. Behind her, the photograph fluttered in the breeze, but stayed anchored against the stone. A father, a daughter, a granddaughter. A family reunited across time and death, and everything in between. Son. That night, Elena sat on the porch of Jake's ranch, watching the stars emerge one by one. Hope was asleep inside. Shadow lay at Elena's feet, his gray muzzle resting on his paws. Jake sat in the chair beside her, a cup of coffee, growing cold in his hands. Do you ever think about what would have happened? Elena asked. If you hadn't come that night, every day. Me too. Elena pulled her sweater tighter. I would have died in that basement. Hope would have died. The other women would still be prisoners. But that's not what happened. No, that's not what happened. Elena looked at Jake. You know what I've realized? The night I made that call, I wasn't just asking someone to save my child. I was asking the universe for proof that goodness still existed, that people still cared about strangers, that hope wasn't just a word. Did you get your proof? Elena smiled. I'm sitting in it. Shadow lifted his head tail, wagging once. He agrees, Jake said. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars multiply across the infinite sky. Elena thought about all the roads that had led to this moment. Her father's sacrifice, Jake's guilt, Derek's cruelty, her own desperate courage on a freezing night. Every tragedy, every triumph, every moment of despair and defiance, they had all brought her here. Home. Jake? Yeah, thank you for everything. Jake reached over and squeezed her hand. Thank your father. He's the one who sent me. Elena looked up at the stars, billions of lights scattered across the darkness, and smiled. I know, she whispered. I know. The storm had passed, the darkness had lifted, and in its place something new had grown. Not just survival, not just recovery, but something stronger, something unbreakable. A woman who'd been told she was nothing had discovered she was everything. A soldier who'd carried guilt for 20 years had finally found peace. A child born in a basement had become a symbol of hope for millions. And a dog who'd spent his life protecting others had found a family worth dying for. This wasn't just a rescue story. This was proof that even in the darkest storms, light finds a way through. That even when we whisper into the void, someone is listening. That love, real love, never truly dies. It just finds a way back.